The man who chose to be forgotten, Diogenes and the cult of attention. Right now, somewhere, someone is staging a photo, not living a moment, staging it, choosing the angle that makes their life look a certain way, for people who will scroll past it in under 2 seconds. We live in what might be the most attention-hungry era in human history. And yet, over 2,300 years ago, in ancient Greece, there lived a man who did the exact opposite of everything we're taught to do today. He rejected wealth. He rejected status. He rejected the approval of literally everyone around him, including the most powerful man in the known world. His name was Diogenes of Sinope, and his life raises an uncomfortable question for anyone living in the age of likes, followers, and personal branding. What are you actually chasing? And is it worth catching? Who was Diogenes? Diogenes was a Greek philosopher born around 412 BCE in Sinope, a city on the Black Sea. He is considered one of the founders of Cynic philosophy, a school of thought built almost entirely around one radical idea: that most of what society calls success is actually a trap. According to ancient accounts, mainly from the biographer Diogenes Laertius, writing centuries later, Diogenes lived in extreme simplicity. Some stories say he lived in a large ceramic jar, often mistranslated as a barrel, in the marketplace of Athens. He owned almost nothing. He begged for food when he needed it. He deliberately embarrassed people in public for their hypocrisy and vanity. It's worth being honest here. Many stories about Diogenes come from second-hand accounts written long after his death, and some are likely exaggerated or even invented over time. A common thing that happens to philosophers whose lives became legendary. But even accounting for exaggeration, the consistent thread across every account is the same. Diogenes built his entire identity around rejecting what other people were desperately chasing. The famous encounter with Alexander the Great. The most famous story about Diogenes involves Alexander the Great, arguably the most powerful person alive at that time. According to the accounts, Alexander, curious about this strange philosopher everyone was talking about, traveled to meet him. He found Diogenes sitting outside in the sun. Alexander introduced himself and, impressed by his reputation, offered Diogenes anything he wanted, any favor, any wealth. Diogenes' reply, as recorded in these accounts, was simple. He asked Alexander to move slightly to one side because he was blocking the sunlight. Whether this exact exchange happened word for word is impossible to verify. It comes from oral tradition recorded generations later. But historically, it's treated as at least broadly representative of Diogenes' character, because it fits everything else we know about him. Here was a man being offered access to the most powerful person on earth, the ultimate form of status and validation. And his response was, "I don't need what you're offering. Please, just don't block my sun." What Diogenes was actually rejecting. It's important to understand, Diogenes wasn't rejecting comfort for its own sake. he was making an argument. His core belief was that most human suffering comes from artificial needs, wanting things not because we actually need them, but because society has convinced us we're supposed to want them. Status, reputation, other people's approval. According to Cynic philosophy, these things enslave us more thoroughly than any literal chains could, because we willingly spend our entire lives chasing them. Diogenes believed that real freedom meant needing as little external validation as possible. Not because possessions or reputation or youple, but because the moment your happiness depends on something outside your control, someone else's opinion, someone else's approval, you've handed them power over your inner life. This is strikingly similar to ideas that would later appear in Stoic philosophy. Cynicism is actually considered one of Stoicism's philosophical ancestors. The idea that peace comes from controlling your own judgments, not from controlling how others see you. Diogenes in the age of social media. Here's where this gets uncomfortable to sit with. Modern social media platforms are structurally attention economies. Every like, share, comment, and follow is a small transaction of validation. Researchers studying social media psychology have repeatedly found links between heavy social comparison on these platforms and increased anxiety, particularly around self-worth being tied to external metrics: followers, engagement, perceived status. Diogenes essentially predicted this dynamic over 2,000 years before it existed, just in a different form. Instead of chasing wealth or political favor, he watched people in the Athens marketplace chase approval, reputation, and status, and concluded that this chase was, in his words, as recorded by later biographers, a kind of madness most people never noticed they had. The tools have changed. Marketplace gossip became newspaper column inches, became follower counts. But the underlying psychological trap Diogenes identified, needing external validation to feel like you matter, hasn't changed at all. The uncomfortable middle ground. To be clear, this isn't a call to live in a jar and reject society. And Diogenes' more extreme, deliberately shocking behaviors, which included public acts designed purely to provoke and embarrass onlookers, aren't really something to aspire to either. Even by ancient standards, he was considered eccentric to the point of being difficult to be around. But there's a more usable version of his core idea, sitting underneath all the theatrics. Notice how much of what you want is actually yours, versus how much of it is borrowed from what you think other people expect to see. A simple, modern version of the Diogenes test might look like this. If no one would ever see it, would you still want it? Would you still take that trip, wear those clothes, pursue that goal, if there were zero witnesses, zero photos, zero validation? If the answer is yes, it's probably genuinely yours. If the answer changes the moment you imagine nobody watching, that desire might be borrowed rather than real. Diogenes chose, quite deliberately, to be forgettable by every conventional measure of his time. No wealth, no property, no status, no political power. And yet, over 2,000 years later, we're still talking about him. Not despite his rejection of attention, but almost because of it. There's something worth sitting with in that irony. The people most remembered across history are rarely the ones who chased being remembered. They're the ones who were simply stubbornly, authentically themselves, and let the attention fall where it fell. If this made you think differently about what you're actually chasing, that's exactly what Inner Compass is here for. Subscribe, and let's keep exploring the ideas that actually shape how we live.